Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. So we are in the second session of our webinar series, Archicad Now, and the topic of this series is template creation for Archicad projects. So in the last week, we saw the template guides that we have for BCA, and then we saw some tips and tricks which we can follow when we are migrating from other BIM and CAD tools. Okay, so as we saw the template guides last time, how to use it, how to use the template that we have as a base. So you can use that template as a base or as a reference, and then you can build your own company templates. So from this week, we are going to see on this webinar series how to develop your company template so that you can use it for all your projects. So today, as a part of it, we are going to see how to set up the project preferences in your project in your Archicad template, and then we'll see how to set up the project structure, and then we will see how to set up the translators for IFC and DWG in your project template. Okay, so without any delay, let's get started. All right, so I'll directly go to Archicad and then show you how to set up the project preferences and then the project structure and then the translators for IFC and DWG. So here I'm using the BCA template as a base, using which I'm going to explain how to set up all these functionalities in your project template for your company. Okay, so once you have opened the project with the template that we have, you can go to options. Okay, on the menu bar you can go to options, project preferences, and you can see we have options for working units, dimensions, calculation units, calculation rules, zones, reference levels, and we are going to see all this today, how to set up for our company standards. Okay, so the first is working units. The working units is basically when you're creating a model, you will have dialog boxes, right? So inside the dialog boxes we will enter the dimensions, and also we will when we are drawing we will have tracker boxes and control boxes. So inside those boxes we have dimensions. So these are the dimensions that will control those. Okay, so those are working units. So for length you can choose whatever unit you want from the list here, and then you can add the decimal values here based on the accuracy in which you want to work in your project. And also for the area we have square meter, square foot, square centimeter, and so on. For volume we have all that, and then for angle we have degrees, radians, decimal degrees, and so on. Okay, so depending on your accuracy you can choose your decimal values here. And also for layout unit we have a separate dimension here, so you can choose inside your layout unit what you want to use. Okay, along with the decimal values for the accuracy. And then the if you are just working with numbers in case any, so you can see the decimal units of those numbers. Without units we have options here. Okay, so this is how we manage the working units when you are modeling. Okay, so let me click OK and then go back to the project preferences. So for that, go to options, project preferences, and then dimensions. Okay, so here I'm going to the dimensions. Okay, so we have the dimensions here. So for the next options, we have the drop down box here from which we can choose and go to the next dialog boxes, or else you can use these arrows here. Okay, so the first is dimensions. So the dimensions is basically used inside in your dimension when you're creating dimension inside the project. These are the units that are being used, and when you are placing zone stamps, fill text, and then if you're placing marker text and all, these dimensions will be affecting those. Okay, so here we have SG metric. So you can create your own either by duplicating this or by creating your own custom values. So if I start changing this, right, so you can see there is a custom created. So using this store as option, you can just store this as your own company template if you want. Okay, so let me just cancel here, and then I'll show you and explain you more about the SG metric here. So for different types of dimensions, we have like a linear dimension, we have angular dimension, radial dimension, level dimension, and then elevation dimension. We have area calculations and so on. So for each you can set your own dimension type here. So for the linear dimension, normally as per the local standards, we use millimeter. For the level dimension and for elevation dimension, we use meters here. And also we use the decimal as 3. So for linear dimension, that is for the length, and then for the elevation, and then for the level elevation and the level dimension, you can choose to have different units. Okay, and then you can store them inside here, and then use it in your project. Okay, and apart from that, you can choose the extra accuracy here. So if you choose extra accuracy, you will have superscripts. So if you see here in the sample, so any value after the 3 decimal values or the decimal values that you choose here, that will be shown as extra accuracy here. So okay, you can choose to have it or you can switch off it. Okay, and on the bottom, if you see, you can either scale these dimensions or you can make it fixed. So scaling is based on the scale that you have for your views, and then if you want to have it fixed, you can choose to have it fixed. Most likely we will use scaled for our projects. Okay, so after the dimensions, we have calculation units. These calculation units are affected only on schedules and also on properties. So based on the model that you have created, if any of the calculations have to be done, so these are the units that will be used for those calculations, especially in schedules and then in properties. Okay, so again, we have linear dimension, that is for length. We have the unit and then the decimal value based on the accuracy that you want to work on, and then the extra accuracy with in the form of superscripts. Okay, so you can choose to have or you can switch it off. So area units we have similar to the linear dimension, and also for volume units we have decimals and then accuracy, extra accuracy. And then for angular units we have decimal degrees. You can choose to have radians or radians, so on. Okay, so the next is calculation rules. So when we calculate, if you are calculating the zone area, we have different formulas that you can use, the rules that you can use. Or if you are calculating the surface area of a wall, we have different rules that will affect the calculations. Okay, so if you want to have any exception, say for example, if you want to ignore the holes that are inside the element, so you can use these to ignore those holes. So if the size of the holes are lesser than the specified value here, say for example we have volume, and if we are calculating the volume of a wall, and if the size of the hole is less than 2.5 meter cube, you can see it comes along with the dimension. Okay, so it's meter cube. Okay, so if you have less than that, it will be ignored. So similar, we have surface area for the wall length we have, and then volume for slab and roof, shell, and so on. So if you want to add more rules here that you need to ignore when you're doing the calculation, so you can just click the volume, surface area, or wall length here. So here this wall length is grayed out because it is already being used for all the element types inside the model or inside the rules here. Okay, and apart from the ignore element holes, we also have component holes, especially for classifications. When we use, depending on the classification that you use, we can choose the component property, choose the component type, and then the material classification, and then you can enter the size of the hole here. Okay, so let me try to add one. So here the component area. So here we are using the classification, Archicad classification version 2, and under the elements, construction element, if I choose any like curtain wall or something, and then I can give the size here, maybe like 2 meters. Okay, so you can keep adding these rules here to ignore the holes if you have any in your project. Similarly, we have special skins and elements. So there are some skin separators inside Archicad. So we have wall air skin, insulation skin. So for each of these skin types, you can add the building material from here. So whenever you use these skin types, it will automatically get these building materials depending on what you specify here inside the calculation rules. Okay. And at the end, you have this calculate totals and schedules by displayed values or exact values. So the difference between these two is the displayed values or the rounded off values based on the dimension units you give here. Okay, so based on the units that you give here, it will be rounded off and then it will be displayed. And when you calculate the total of it, if you want to just add the displayed units and then create a total, you can use this option. But if you want to use the exact value of the calculated values and then create a total, you can use the exact values. So depending on the accuracy that you want to maintain in your project, you can choose between these two options. Okay. All right, so the next option here is the zones. So again, for zones, we have calculation rules here. So if in case we have wall recess, in terms of doors or windows, and if the recess is deeper than 50 here, 50 mm, so you can choose to ignore those, or you can just add it to the zone. If it is deeper than 50, it will be added to the zone. If it is less than 50, it will not be added. And again, if it is larger than the meter square, here it is in mm, here you can enter the value in areas. So if it is larger than the meter square, you can add that to the zone. And to act upon between these two rules, you can either use and or okay. And the next one is wall and column subtraction. So if you want to subtract the wall and column, you need to specify the minimum meter square, and if it is more than that minimum meter square, it will be subtracted based on the percentage that you enter here. Okay, so currently we can set it to 0, and then subtraction is also 100%, so there won't be any subtraction happening. Okay. And then after that, area reduction under low ceiling. So for low ceiling, we have two options. So in these two options, if the ceiling is lower than these two values, so you can just manipulate these values. I can just make this 1500 and then make this 500 also. So depending on the requirement that you have in your projects, you can just change these values, and then you can choose to give the percentage subtraction from your zone in these two boxes here. Okay. All right, so we have seen about the zones and then the rules that we follow to calculate the area for the zones. So the next is reference levels. So we have four reference levels here. One is project 0. So this is always fixed. And then the sea level is also fixed based on the value that you enter inside the location settings. Okay, later we'll see how to enter the value in location settings. And apart from the project 0 and sea level, we have these two reference levels. So for the local standards, we have made it as height datum, and then we also have the second reference level, which is not used. Maybe if you want to use it with any name, say for example, if you want to put it like top story or something, and then you can enter a value here and then use it as a reference level. Okay, so one thing you can note here is, yeah, this one is relative to, you can change this to any other reference levels. So if I change this relative to sea level, you can see the sea level becomes 0, and then the project 0 becomes 5913. And then if I make it to project 0, the project 0 becomes 0, and then sea level goes minus 5913. Okay, so you can choose to have this relative to option to any of the reference levels here. Okay, I can choose to have it in any reference levels. All right, so let me go to the next one. The next one is legacy. So here we have slabs, meshes, and objects. So for the objects, above the home story, you can just add the solid line here, and if it is below the home story, you can use to have the choose the line type here from here. So you can choose any line type from your template, and then this line type will be affecting your objects only if the override option is switched on. Okay, so if the objects override option is switched on, only then this will be affecting the objects, else it will be affecting only the slabs and meshes. So make sure if you want to have your objects uh, being overridden by these lines, you need to use the objects with the option override object switched on. Okay, And apart from that, we have use symbolic display in floor plan for single plane roofs and skylights. So you can use this option also if you want, which is as per the Archicad 14 or the standard before the Archicad 14. Okay, so here we have the explanation for that. Okay, and then the next one is the legacy intersection between the element or the building materials. So this one is going to be scrapped. So before Archicad 17, so we were using this option, this kind of element intersection between the building materials. So after that, after Archicad 17, we are having the priority based element connection. So we need not worry about the connection anymore. It automatically cleans based on the priority that we set for the elements or the building materials. Okay, and then the last one is hide zones and their associated labels on section type views. So you can uncheck this if you want to see this inside your sections and elevations. So sections actually. So here if you see, this option is available only from Archicad 24, Archicad 25. So it is not available before Archicad 25. Okay, so let me just go to the next option here. So the next one is stair rules and standards. So you can define your stair rules here. So these are some of the predefined rules already set. You will not be able to change any of them, but you can just choose the visibility here and then make it deep, make your stair tool use these rules or not. So if you make it visible here, so your stair tool will be using this particular rule. Okay. So currently the first two are by default using the stair tool. Okay, so the other rules are not being used. Of course, when you go to the stair tool, you can switch on these rules inside the stair settings to make use of these rules also. Okay. All right, the next one is structural analytical model units. Of course, we have structural analytical model inside Archicad. We can develop that. So earlier we had a webinar series on Archicad now for engineers where we showed how to develop the structural analytical model based on your structural BIM model. So we have the unit preferences here. So for stiffnesses, for forces, and for moments, we have different units, and then you can choose from the list here, and then you can set decimal values also here. Okay. So the next is the representation of the structural analytical model. So you can represent the structural analytical model with different colors depending on the element type, like if it is a 2D member or if it is 2D 1D member, or if it is a 2D link, you can just represent them depending on the colors that you choose here in this preferences. Okay. So the next is load units. So in Archicad 25, we introduced loads for structural analytical model. So for different types of loads like point load, line load, or surface load, you can select the units from here and then the decimal values depending on the accuracy that you want to work on. Okay, so this is about the project preferences. So let's go back to the options, project preferences, and see the MEP preferences here. Okay, so for MEP projects, we also have MEP preferences where we can set these standards. Say for example, if you want to segment the duct, pipe, or cables based on the standard lengths, so you can define it here. So based on this, if you create a duct which is more than like 2 meter or something, it will automatically create a connection there. Okay, so it will not be continuously as a same duct, it will create a connection. So if you create a pipe which is longer than 6 meters, so it will have a connection there, it will create a segment, and then there will be a new pipe created inside the model. So you can define all that here depending on the standards that you have. And then for the rise and drop unit, you can choose to have the degree or percentage. Okay, or you can even have inch by foot or by meters. Okay, so you can choose to have whatever value that you use in your projects. And then for the bend angles, we have some standard bend angles, and if you want to add your own custom values, you can just use this option here to add your custom values here. Okay, so you can add something like 5%, that 5 degree you can add also. And then for predefined sizes for the ducts, pipes, and cable carriers, so you can choose the size and then their corresponding bend radiuses here. So here we have the options to add few more if you want. So I can just click add and then start typing my own size of the pipe, or the duct or the cable carrier, and then their corresponding bent radiuses. Okay, so if you want to export and import different, between the projects, you can just use these options here. Okay, so we also have options to convert the MEP objects to equipment or all equipment to objects. So the difference between the objects and equipment is that, like, if you use the equipment, you will have the connectors defined there. So you can define your connectors, and then you can start creating your MEP routing from the connectors inside your model. So you can use this option also. Okay, so let me just click OK. Going back to options, project preferences, we have the location settings. So you can just click the location settings. You have location settings dialog box open. So if we have the project name and then the site full address that is coming from the project info. So if you want to edit those, just click edit here. The project info dialog box opens up, and then you can enter the project related information here. Okay, so when you enter that, it automatically gets reflected here inside this dialog box also. And apart from that, we have the latitude, longitude, time zone, and the altitude from sea level. So based on your surveys data, you can enter the latitude and longitude value of your project location, and then choose the time zone, and then the altitude from the sea level here. Okay, or you can choose from the Google Maps also. Okay, so here also you can choose from the Google Maps, or you can see it on the Google Maps here. Okay. So the next is the survey point. So under the survey point, we have the symbol. So you can choose to have different symbols from this. You can choose either one of it. And then we have the position here. So for the position, we use easting and northing, and then the elevation. Whatever value that the surveyor gives, you have to enter it here in millimeter and then in negative. So if they give it in positive, you change it as negative, and then if they give it in negative, you convert it to positive. So the reason why we enter the value in negative is that we are actually referencing the point from the project to the standard, the location where we have the reference points. Okay, so that's why we are making it negative here. So we are referencing this reference point from the project location. So that's why we are making it negative. So if it is given in positive, convert it to negative, and if it is given in negative, convert it to positive. Okay. So if you want to enter the geo-referencing parameters for IFC extraction, you can use these parameters here, and then you can enter those values. Okay. And then in the location settings, we have the project north in the end. So here you can choose to enter the value manually, or you can use this handle here to rotate. Okay, so as you rotate here, it will change the value here inside the north angle. Okay, or you can choose to enter the value manually. Okay, so let me just click cancel here. So that's it about the project preferences. So if you go to options, project preferences, we have all the options here to set your project preferences. Okay, so now let's go to the next topic, which is the project structure. Okay, so the project structure is mainly handled within the navigator here. So inside Archicad, we have navigator. Okay, so inside the navigator, we have project map, view map, we have layout books, and then the publisher sets. Okay, so in the project map, we have all the viewports inside the project. Okay, and if you save all these viewports with settings, it can be saved inside the views here, view map here. So for each view, say for example, we have stories here, right? From basement 2 to roof story we have. So for each of this, we can have multiple views saved with different view settings. Okay, you can see here. So when you right click the view map, you will see the view settings. So under the view settings, we can customize all this layer combination, scale, structural display, pen sets, model view options, graphic overrides, renovation filters, and so on. And then if you see under 2D and 3D documents, we have this floor plan cutting range. So you can define that relative floor plan range or absolute display limit and so on here. Okay. So in order to customize these, you can just use this quick options toolbar and then change everything, and then right click any view here and then redefine with current window settings. So it will automatically use these settings and then it will be transferred to the view settings of that particular view. And one more thing I want to show here is the cloned folders. So if you see here, there is an arrow here in this folder, which means that it is being cloned from the view project map here. So this stories folder has been cloned here. So whatever changes I do here, say for example, if I want to just delete this story, so let me just delete it. It will automatically be reflected inside here, inside the cloned folder. But if in case you have created a folder manually and then dragged and dropped these views inside that, it will not be cloned automatically. So it is easy to use the cloned folder for few reasons. So one of the reasons is to automatically update the list of views that we have inside this project map. Okay, so the other thing is that, so for the entire folder, right, so for the entire cloned folder, you will have the view settings. So you can right click and then apply the view settings for the entire folder, so that all the views inside that folder will use these settings. Okay, so just by managing this one folder view settings, you are managing the view settings for the entire views inside that folder. Okay, so but if you see inside any of the other folders, so these are the normal folders that are created without being cloned. So there are no view settings for this. So if you see, if I right click, there's no view settings. But if it is a cloned folder, I'll be having the view settings which can be applied for the entire views inside that folder. All right, so the next is the layout book. So after creating your views, you can create your sheets. That is the layout book inside Archicad. So you can have master layouts, which will be the title block, which can be used inside the layouts. Okay. So for creating new title blocks, you have option here to create new master layout, and then you can just define the size and then the margins here, depending on your requirement, the portrait or landscape, and then you can click create. And then you can start using this layout inside your layouts. You can start using this master layout. So for creating the title block, right, it is very simple. You can just drag and drop any DWG file which is containing your title block, and then you can just explode that into this view, and then you can manipulate that depending on your requirement. So let me go to any of the default uh, title block that we have here. So when you explode, right, you will have all the lines and then the text here. So you can just double click the text after you import your drawing, and then you can just use this auto text, or you can use just the text to represent your information here. Again, for bringing in your company logo, it is again, if it is a image, you can just simply drag and drop and then place it here and then select it to resize them. So you can use these hotspots to resize them. So here we have the stretch on the pet pillar to resize them. Okay. All right. So here, if you want to use the auto text here, so here this insert QP name is all auto text. So when you see the hash symbol here, it means that it is coming from the auto text. Say for example, if I want to add the project name here, right? So I can just click the auto text symbol, insert auto text symbol here, and then I can choose from the list the project details, the project name. So I can just simply add the project name, and then it will give the information that is entered inside the project info dialog box that I showed earlier. Okay, so let me just delete this, and then you can click outside to confirm the changes that you have done. Okay, so now I'll show you where the project info is coming from. So for that, go to File, Info, Project Info. Okay, so here we have all the project info. So you can use all this information inside your master layout that will be reflected in all your layouts. So whatever changes you do here, say maybe if I change this to uh, XYZ project, and then click OK, you can see the project name getting changed here. Okay, so it changes to XYZ project, not just here, it changes in all the layouts also. Okay, so if I go here inside the sample layout, so you can see the project name is XYZ project. Okay, so you can just enter the value here it gets reflected or it gets updated in every other layouts that you have inside your model. Okay, so again, for placing your drawings inside this, you can simply drag and drop the views. So if you want to drag and drop from the view list, you can just go here inside the views inside your view map, and then you can simply drag and drop them here. So you can just click it and then drag and drop it here. Okay, so let me not drop it because we already have one drawing here. So this way you can just create your layouts. And then finally we have this publisher sets. One more thing I want to show here is the folder that we create here is not the clone folder. So whatever we create here, we can have a clone folder, but inside the layout book, we cannot have a clone folder. Okay, so you need to manually drag and drop and create your own layout book with folders and sheets inside those. Okay. The final one is the publisher sets. So in this publisher sets, we can create different publisher sets depending on the file format that you want to export to. So here we have DWG publisher sets, we have publisher sets to plot, we have BIMX publisher sets, and so on. Okay, so let me just go inside one of these. All right, so if you see here, I have the folder XYZ project that is just now I changed, and inside that we have the clone folders here. Again, inside the publisher sets, we can create clone folders of your layout book. So you can clone this structure and then create it inside the layout book, I mean publisher set, so that whatever changes you do inside the layout book will be reflected inside your publisher sets. Okay, so you can clone them. So if I select the clone folder, right, so this top folder is a clone folder, there's an arrow there. I can set the file formats of all the files within this clone folder. So again, I can choose here from DWG file, or if it is PDF, or if it is exported as image file formats or DXF, and so on. So I can choose from here. And then I can also choose the translators. Translators I'll show later, but you can choose the translator for the entire folder structure here from the clone folder on the top. Okay, or you can individually go to the folder to the publisher set drawing there, and then from there also you can choose the file formats. So it's up to you. Okay, so once after you have your publisher sets ready, you can just select them, and then you can click here the selected sets and then just publish it. So before publishing, you can just publish it to either the BIM cloud or to your local machine. So from the option here for the publisher set properties, you can choose it and then publish it to any location. Okay. All right. So that's about the project structure. Now we will go ahead and see the translators for IFC and DWG. Okay. So for that, we can go to File, Interoperability, and then we have the IFC. So let me go to any of the floor plan 2D view, and then I can access the IFC translator. Okay, so again go to File, Interoperability, and then IFC translator. Okay, so IFC, we have IFC translators for import and for export. And if you see under export, we have an Archicad symbol there. So the one that has the Archicad symbol is the default one. Okay, so if you want to make any other export translator here as a default, so you can make select that and then click this set preview. Okay, so let me just get the general parametric export as default. So you can see it became the default one. Okay, so under each translator set, we have different settings on the right side. So if we choose different one, the settings gets changed. So you can just select one of these and then you can just go and change the settings here to export your IFC file and different specifications. Okay, so here under the IFC schema, we have IFC 2x3 or IFC 4. Okay, so the latest one is IFC 4. If you want to use that, you can just use that. And then under the model view definitions, you can choose from here the different model view definitions. So you can see the Kobe or the coordination view version 2, 2.0 and so on. Okay. And then for each model view definitions and the IFC schema, we have the conversion presets. So inside that, we can define different information that need to be included inside your IFC export file. Okay, and not just in export, even on import, we have the presets. Let me first go through the export one. So the model filter, you can go here. There are multiple model filter default ones available, but if you want to customize these, just use the option here to edit, and then you can create your own default or your own preset for model filter. Okay, so if you see here under the model filter, we can just select to export all elements or just the load bearing elements. Only if you want to export the structural model, you can choose to have the load bearing elements, or only the non-load bearing elements you can choose from here also. And by IFC domain, you can choose from here structural, MEP, or you can choose to have custom. So if I choose structural, right, not every element type will be selected here. You can see here. And if I choose to MEP, again, only not everything will be selected, only that is related to MEP are selected. So you can choose to have custom also, or you can export everything from your model. Okay. And then if you want to have grid inside your IFC, you can just choose the option here, and then the lines and text labels and fills if you want, you can choose here. And then doors and window views, if you want, you can have it here. Okay, so let's go back to the export setting conversion presets. The next one is type mapping. So inside here, we also have the presets, IFC 2x3 or IFC 4. So you can just go here inside the type mapping, and then you can go to the map IFC types for export. You can map between the classification and then the IFC types here. Say for example, if you draw a table using a column and then slab, right? You can just classify it as a furniture, and then go here, and then you can map those classification type with the IFC type here. So depending on that, it will automatically get exported. Okay, so let me just cancel here. The next is geometry conversion. So this one is quite important. So when you are exporting, right, you can export it as parametric geometry or boundary representation geometry. Parametric geometry is used for components like slabs, columns, beams, and so on. So if you are exporting any truss or some complex components, right, so in that case you can use boundary representation. Okay, so you can see here when you are exporting the IFC model, if you want to use the survey point and the project origin as the origin of the model, or you can choose to have just the project origin or the survey point only. Okay, so you can use the options here. All right, so when you're exporting curtain wall, stair, and railing, these are having sub components inside. So if you want to keep the hierarchy inside the IFC as the child component, you can use to keep the hierarchy, or you can just convert them to a single element. Okay, so we have options for related to geometry inside this preset. So the next is property mapping. Again, if you want to include any property that you have user defined by you, and then include that into your IFC model, you can use this IFC property mapping dialog box, where say for example, if I want to map the GFA area to my spaces inside, so I can just select the IFC space from the list here, and then go here and then create a new preset. Say for example, I create preset GFA. Okay, and then I just give the property name as GFA area. Okay, and I just choose the single value and then give it as an IFC label and click OK. So here I can create a new rule using which I can link the property. Okay, so I'm adding the content to the rule. So here I can choose the GFA area. So let me just type GFA area. Okay, so when I type, you can see here, I have the GFA general area and then the specified area. So I can use maybe the general area, so that whenever I export, right, so all IFC space will have this property and then its value there inside my IFC file. So you can use this property mapping preset to map all the properties that you have created by yourself, and then link it to the IFC element type, and then that element type will have the properties when you export. Okay, so the next is data conversion. So for data conversion, you can see Archicad calculator or Archicad related information that is created inside the file can be exported as well. You can export the classification, element properties, element parameters, component parameters, door and window parameters, zone categories, and all that. And apart from that, we also have this IFC based quantities. These quantities are calculated based by the authoring tool itself, by Archicad itself. So when you use this and then do the quantity takeoff inside any other model checker tool, it will be much more accurate than what you use from the IFC file. So you can choose to include this base quantities, and then the space containment, especially when you're checking your model for your no, space containment and so on, you can just use this option here. And then the space boundaries, it will have all the boundary related information of your space inside the IFC when you export it. Okay, so the last one is unit conversion. You can define your units here. Okay, so let me go back to the import translators. So inside the import translators, very similar to the export translator. I'm not going to go inside the details. So but when you import, right, it is very similar. You can choose the type of component that you want to import. The only difference is the material and surface conversion here. So when you are importing, you can choose the material from your IFC. You can have the IFC material and then the corresponding Archicad building material that you want to replace it with. Okay, so you can define this inside the import translator so that you can have your model as expected inside the Archicad file. Okay, so the last one is DWG translator. Again, for that, go to file, interoperability, DXF and DWG here. So you have the translators. So again, for DWG translator, we have for both import and export. So if you see here, this is the export. If the arrow is towards the right, it is export, and if the arrow is towards left, it is for import. Okay, so here these are again for export, and the last one, which is the special built-in translator, is for both. Okay, you can use this for both. Okay, so for each translator, we have the setting, description and settings. The description is basically the description of that translator. So let us see for further editing, export option. So you can just export using this for further editing when you are exporting your DWG file. Okay, so you can duplicate or create your new translator also here. I'm just using this default translators here, and then I'm just explaining. So under the settings, we have 6 options. The first one is the drawing unit, where you can just define your unit in which the drawing has to be created when you export it. Okay, so you can choose here from the units list depending on your requirement. And then the scale factor, you can always use the scale set in the currently active Archicad window, or you can just use your own scale that is defined here. Okay, it's always best to use the one that we set it on the Archicad window. And then the next is open options. Open option is grayed out because this is for export. So let me just use this import translator to explain the open options. So here, when you're importing the DWG file into Archicad, you can see the blocks in AutoCAD can be created as grouped 2D elements, or you can just create 2D elements, or you can make a library part out of it. Okay, the translate dimension, as you can choose to have the dimension change, or you can make it single dimension units or lines and text. Okay, and here if you see, wherever applicable, you can make it associative dimension also using this checkbox. Okay, and then for picture conversion, you can just choose to have the picture in original format, or you can choose the format from here when you import the images from uh, the DWG files. Okay, and open as library part, the 3D data is created as GDL scripts or binary 3D. So GDL script is better for Archicad, so you can use this option here. Okay, so the next is save option. Save options will be grayed out for import translator. So I'm using the export translator for further editing to show this. So here under save options, the file format you can choose from the file format here. The default one is AutoCAD 2004 drawing, so we can use that. And then again, for image conversion, you can choose the image. So when you are importing when you're exporting the DWG file, so you can choose to export it in different file formats from this option. And then we have this template file. So this template file we can use to map the attributes. So later I'll show you. For now, just I'll import the template drawing that I have. Okay, I'll show you later why I use this here. Okay, so here save layout into you can save it to the model space, or you can just save it to the paper space with the crop view or the entire drawing. So you can choose from the options here. Okay, and then the origin, again you can choose the project origin or the survey point origin for your drawing. Okay, and then place drawings into a single DXF file, DWG file, or linked XREF file. So the difference between these two is when you export the single DWG file, right? So all the drawings that are inside the layouts will be created inside the model space itself. But when you are linking it with XREF drawings, so for each drawing that you have inside the layout, a separate XREF file will be created, and then it will be linked to the main file. Okay, so it is always better to use single DXF DWG file here. Okay, and you also have separate settings for each of this. You can make use of if it is required. Okay, the next is saving floor plan, convert Archicad elements to blocks, or explode Archicad elements, convert only objects to blocks, or prepare for smart merge. So you can use these four options to manipulate your drawings when you export them from the Archicad projects. Okay, so the next is about zones. If you want to just place the stamp of zones, or if you want to create fills, you can choose from the option here. And then the saving 3D data, you can omit the polygon edges, or you can include them also. So it's DWG. If it is a 2D view, it's better to just omit the polygon edges. All right, seeing the first three options, let's go ahead with the attributes. So again, inside attributes, we have multiple options like layers, pens, colors, line types, fills, font style conversion, and so on. So when I go inside the layer, so here, layer method, I can choose to create new layers inside my DWG file based on the Archicad layers, or pen numbers, element types, or layers extended by pen numbers, and so on. So let's use Archicad layers. So for each corresponding Archicad layer I will have a corresponding DWG layer or AutoCAD layer also. Okay, and then for create, when you're creating layers, you want to create layers for visible layers only, or for all layers that are available inside the drawing. So let's just make it visible layers only. And now, so inside Archicad, right, so there are some components which will not have layers. Say, for example, doors and windows, which will have the layers of the wall itself. So these are hosted components, so they won't have any specific layers themselves. So for that, you can define the layer here so that the the AutoCAD drawing will have that corresponding layers for doors, windows, and other specific things that are not having the layers. Okay, so having seen that, let's go inside the layer name conversion. So for each Archicad layer, you can define the conversion rule here, so that say for example, if you want to have the renovation tag at the end of your each Archicad layer inside your DWG layer, you can just go here inside the settings, and then you can choose the postfix, and depending on the renovation status, you can just enter the uh, postfix, or if you want to add the prefix, you can enter them also. Okay, so let's just click OK. So here, if you see, if I want to create any new Archicad layer and then the corresponding DWG file AutoCAD layer, I can just click new. So you can choose the Archicad layer here. Say for example, if I choose like column, okay. So if it is renovation status, I can choose from here, and then I can just change the name here, and then the corresponding layer I can choose from the template file that I previously loaded. So the template file that I loaded, right? So I can just choose from here, or if you don't have a template file, you have to manually enter the value here. Okay, so you can just use manually enter for each Archicad layer the corresponding DWG layer that you want to create. Okay. Depending on the renovation status, it will add a postfix that we predefined here. Okay, so if you want to delete it, you can delete, or you can edit it later also. Similarly, we have pens and colors. Again, for pens, we have options to just match the best suitable color on the AutoCAD, or we can use the RGB value from the Archicad to convert it to the colors inside AutoCAD. Okay, so again, for pens and color conversion, you can define the pen color from Archicad, and then you can define the color in AutoCAD, and then its weight. So you can use the option here, and then you can just choose the pen color from Archicad here, and then its corresponding color inside AutoCAD by layers or by block. So you can choose to have that. Okay. So you can choose to have the pen weight also. Okay. Similarly, we have line types. Okay. Uh, So for line types, we have options to choose the line types to by layers, and also we have the option for scaling the lines to Archicad drawings. Okay, so for line type, you can choose from the template file here. So I loaded the template file, so I can match it from the template file and then match it with one line type inside my Archicad file. So if I use this dashed, okay, or maybe like dash dot and dashed, and then the similar one inside my loaded file, I can choose from here dash dot 2 or something, and then I can enter the scale here for it. Okay, so whenever you export for each line type that is using this inside the AutoCAD file, it will create an AutoCAD file with this line type. Okay, so the next is fill, which is very similar to the previous attributes that we saw. So you can just use the hatch patterns from the template that we loaded with the fill that we have inside Archicad. Okay, so we have all these fills, and inside the AutoCAD file that we loaded, you can choose from the hatch patterns and then link it with the hatch scale. Okay, so the final one is the font style. So similarly, we can just map the Archicad font with the AutoCAD style to create drawings accordingly. And we also have some miscellaneous settings, like to replace the renovation status with new if there is missing renovation status. And if it is a DXF file, we can just write a binary DXF file to reduce the size of it, and so on. And then the final one is the custom function. It is for both opening and for saving. So for opening, you can choose to have like points. When you're importing points, you can make it as hotspots. When you're importing the meshes from Archicad files, you can use these options here to convert 3D face to empty fill, screen background, and so on. So for saving options, so when you're saving a DWG file, you can store the original block, the labels, you can convert the labels to a leaders, reduce number of created blocks. You can just merge all the blocks together as a single block inside DWG. So you can use all these options here. Okay. So similarly for import options, so we have all these translators which you can predefine so that when you are importing, it will map the corresponding one that you have designed here, and then it will create the drawings inside the Archicad file. Okay, so we have run a bit of over the time. So let me go back to the slides. So we have seen everything that we have planned for today. We saw the project preferences, we saw the project structure, and then the translators. So that's it for today. So please follow us on the social media on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And you can also find us on the YouTube. You can find the recordings of all the webinar series there. Um, we'll post the webinar recordings of this webinar series also soon there inside our the Graphisoft SG YouTube channel. You can take a look at there also.